Good morning everyone, SigmaOni here and welcome to this video. Today I wanted to talk about Ascendant Hearts, a visual novel published in 2018 by Visualnoveler and supported by a Kickstarter campaign. The game starts with our protagonist, Hayato, waking up in a fantasy world and guess what? It's an Isekai, baby! After waking up in the plaza of the city of Lightshire in a world different than his with amnesia, he is immediately rescued from some bloodlusted beast by Shiori, this beauty here. Hayato makes a beautiful impression and so he is picked up by her, who starts teaching him the ropes of how that world works, which in reality is just how an RPG works. I mean, they even have inventory, level grinding, skill points, and they even respawn after dying if the one who killed them didn't want to, which kind of seems like a paradox, but it makes more sense in the game rather than seeing it out of context like this. Wait, something is missing. Oh, yeah, there is the normal guild where the protagonist becomes an adventurer because he needs to earn money to live. At least this time it's not for saving the world, thank god. He starts doing basic quests together with Shiori before they decide to investigate what really lies behind the attacks of the beast they encounter at the start of the game, which apparently appeared one day out of nowhere and started attacking Lightshire because they wanted to. And so they set to learn the truth behind those inexplicable attacks. Oh god, they are going to say the word, aren't they? While acquiring more teammates, trying to understand how Hayato arrived in the world and how can he eventually go back while also encountering interesting people. For science! So let's talk about the story. While it surely isn't the best story you will ever encounter in your life, it has no pretense to be it. It is a story with no expectations that does its honest job while keeping the player entertained. What this game presents itself to be is to be a parody of the Isekai genre. Heck, they even wrote that in the Steam page. And it works. The parody is good, the comedy is enjoyable, and there are some new points of view on some given aspects of RPG games. For example, NPC from non-playable character transforms itself into necessary personal contact, and a raid becomes rare adventure right in dungeons, which, from the protagonist and our perspective, because in those cases they coincide, considering that the RPG mechanics he knows are the ones we also know, are just ridiculous but at the same time genius. Those are concepts that are so given that when we hear something different, we just blink and think, what the actual fuck? All these things combined make the game enjoyable throughout all its duration. The game also tries to construct a world and a lore to it by throwing things around during various events, and while it can be appreciated that they at least try to do it, the info the game gives us sometimes are just useful for the quest we are doing but then just aren't brought up ever again. But at least it doesn't present major plot holes and it kind of closes everything that it opened during the game. Talking about the various finals that the game offers, 3 of which are dedicated to their respective romance route while the others are tied to other choices, they feel like an honest conclusion to the plot and it honestly just closes the circle perfectly, bringing a good closure to a good story. It has also one of the most convenient twists in the history of Isekais, but I will leave it at that because spoilers. The game doesn't last too long, as I was able to finish it in around 4 hours and a half and to obtain all of the achievements in 6 hours, so don't expect the most complicated storyline out there as I already made clear enough. Speaking of different finals, let's talk about the characters of their roots. There are 3 main love interests in this game, which follow in a way or another the typical anime archetypes. There is Shiori, who follows in a way the tsundere archetype, being very surly and a bit hot-tempered because of her past, yet she feels like the most original character in the game, not really entering into any other specific archetypes that comes to my mind right now. Then there is Aiko, your typical shy girl with a strange attraction to death and card games. And finally Chise, a girl who relaxes by doing raids and going watching monsters battles in the Colosseum while being a bit cold and harsh in her manners. All of these girls have various personal events, plus some more lines that differ from route to route that, if followed, lead you to their ending, which I will describe with only one adjective. Shiori, perfect. Aiko, adequate. Chise, strange. In any case, all of them make for a good conclusion to the story, so that is all that matters. Speaking of characters, there are also some secondary characters in the game that aren't really that well developed except for one who is a bit important for the plot, but they also don't really have that much of a screen time, so that is also a matter to take into consideration. Now, let's talk a bit about the art style, which is honestly really enjoyable. I mean, the backgrounds are pretty basic, following the basic gist of being the parody of a normal RPG, but where they are really shines is with the characters. I mean, look at Shiori, look at her. And now look at Aiko, look at Chise, look at this cute thing. And look at this CG. From my point of view, the art style is really solid, with the character design being one step further than the rest. It is also worth mentioning that this game also has an 18+ patch, which only restores some nudity in the CGs and nothing else. Speaking of the sound department, this visual novel is mute, it doesn't come with voice actors in it, and while some may find that a bit of a turn off or a negative thing, I don't really think it is that negative. I mean, hiring voice actors cost a lot. Remember that this is a crowdfunding project, so it probably meant that they didn't have that much money in the first place. So why should that matter? I mean, I know that the big Japanese, Chinese and Korean games have voice acting, but they also have a market that makes it worth it to have it. Plus, of course, the special content that kind of requires it for immersion purpose, I suppose. And they also cost way more because of that. I mean, they have to make the money they spend come out from somewhere, right? So, with the absence of voice acting out of the way, the only thing that remains here is the music, which is okay. I mean, you won't find memorable tracks that will stay with you like the crippling depression that normally gets to players when they fell into the visual novel rabbit hole and see imaginary characters have a better social life than them. Was this too much relatable? Nah, imaginary characters are supposed to be what humans aren't, right? Wait, what was the saying again? Oh, yeah, the music. The music is not memorable, but it is a nice background for the events that happen on the screen, suiting every situation for which the tracks are used and making their presence enjoyable. Ascendant Hearts is a really enjoyable visual novel, parodying the Isekai genre in a good way, while also trying to tell a story that isn't the most original one out there, but that can still keep the player entertained for the whole duration of it. It is not the most innovative visual novel you will ever find on the market, but it remains a solid one nevertheless. And at last, let me be a bit subjective about this game. I honestly enjoyed the time I spent playing it. It is a good visual novel with which to pass time, and you will probably remember the time you passed playing it for a bit, because that is what happened to me. The game is now available on PC and Nintendo Switch for €9.99, and in my opinion it is worth all of them, so if you want to play it now, know that your money will be worth the purchase, and if you want to wait for a sale, know that you are going for a steal there. But this is just my personal opinion about the matter, you can just ignore it and do whatever you want. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe to the channel, it helps me a lot. If you have played this game before, let me know what you think down in the comments below, and yeah, I think that is all I have to say. So this was all from SigmaOni, and I will see you guys in my next video.